So we have more and more doctors that are coming over to a regular keto style of diet, but obviously you're an advocate for carnivore diet. What would you say are the main advantages to getting rid of every plant, including the low carbohydrate vegetables?
Yeah, so for some people, that's absolutely where they will attain their best health. Now, I currently don't believe that everybody needs to eat a carnivore diet for the rest of their life, but I think there's a subset of people who absolutely do. I think there's a normal distribution curve when it comes to all things in biology and physiology. Some people can eat some low carb veggies, some berries, some nuts, and they seemingly do just fine. They realize and retain optimal health when they do that. Other people who are more inflamed by the lectins, the phytates, the saponifins, the phytoestrogens, the other things that occur in plants and in their seeds, they need to avoid this stuff altogether. And so I really advocate everybody do 90 days of a carnivore diet of beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. That way, because the carnivore diet is without question the most uninflammatory diet that a human being can eat. There's no doubt about that. And after you've done that 90-day purification of your personal physiology, then you can say, but I really love cashews, man, or I really love coffee, or I really love whatever plant food it happens to be. After you've purified your system with 90 days of carnivore, then you can add that plant food back in. And if there's immediate inflammation, if your body gives you immediate feedback, then you can mark that plant food or liquid off your diet. Like, no, obviously that causes inflammation. I should not be ingesting that. Many people do this and they find, oh, there's a list of 20 or 30 plant foods I can eat and it's just fine. Other people say, nope, every time I introduce a plant food, I have inflammation. So obviously, I am meant by my physiology to be a carnivore.
Hmm. Do you think that many people may have inflammation that they don't even realize, even if they think they tolerate many of these plant foods? Because we see in the Mediterranean
Yes.
countries, they live long, healthy lives in theory, but in reality, they're all dying at 80, when in theory, humans could live to 120. And many of these people live lives with seemingly no effects from these plant foods.
Yeah. It's a principle of human nature that we get used to what we're used to.
Mhm.
We have to do that or we go insane. There are so many things in our life every day. We have to ignore those things because they're so mundane and so commonplace that if you focused on every mundane thing in your life, you would go insane. And so many people around the world are living with chronic inappropriate inflammation. And they've been living with it for so many years, in some cases, many decades, that's just their normal. They have no idea. And that's why I'm a huge advocate for at least a 90-day trial of carnivore because you don't know how inflamed you are. You don't know how fatigued you are. That's become your normal. And you're like, no, I feel fine. I feel normal. But you don't even realize how good you could feel after that 90 days of a carnivore purification process, 90 days of a trial of a carnivore diet.
You have made the beef, butter, bacon, eggs style of carnivore incredibly popular. So I'm curious, is that what you typically eat, or do you have, a lot of carnivores find the natural proclivity to become more and more towards the lion diet? What does a typical dad eating look like for you?
Yeah, for me currently, beef, butter, bacon, and eggs makes up 99.5% of my diet. I love dairy. So I would love to be able to include some yogurt or some sour cream or some Neufchâtel in every single meal because I freaking love it. But the inflammatory dairy proteins, they play their role in causing inflammation. Also, the hyperinsulinemic quality of many of the dairy proteins. I would start to gain weight and I would start to become pre-diabetic and I would start to be inflamed. So I have to stick to just animal flesh and eggs. I think for some people, beef, butter, bacon, and eggs is not tight enough. I think there is a subset of people that absolutely will have their best health on a lion diet. I'm a big proponent of the lion diet for the people who need that. I don't think all people do, but I think many people do.
Many people, they go on the carnivore diet, they see tremendous results. They've lost all the weight, they feel a lot better. And when people ask them, "What are you doing?" and they say, "Oh, I'm on this all meat diet," even despite the fact that every tangible metric is improved with these people, they're under the impression that they're going to die. So, is
Yep.
there any evidence at all that red meat is harmful for humans? Are there any compounds in there that maybe we want to avoid, or you think it's completely fine?
This is a very complicated answer. It's going to take me a while to say this, so everybody pay close attention. No.
Awesome. I'm glad we're on the same page.
Meat has been villainized for centuries by various religions that it feels carnal, it feels sinful, it feels evil. And when you say I'm eating nothing but meat, immediately anybody who doesn't understand the physiology thinks, oh, well, you're just a corrupt, evil sinner. You're just hedonic. You're just after the pleasure. That's not what this is about. You gotta lay aside all of the childish beliefs that you were taught. You have to re-remember what human beings are. You have to re-remember or learn anew where we came from. What have we eaten for the last 300,000 years? You got to put aside all the childish beliefs. You have to just to be blunt, you have to grow up. And for some people, that's very hard. I can remember when I first learned that Santa Claus wasn't real. It broke my heart. It fractured my worldview. And when you say to a colleague or a friend, they're like, man, you look amazing. I can tell you're so much happier. What are you doing? And you say, I eat nothing but meat. You have to realize in many cases that is a hard blow for them. You are pushing back against training that they've been given their entire life. It's a pseudo religious belief that too much meat is definitely bad, and in some cases, any meat whatsoever is just a little bit sinful. You're being a little naughty if you eat meat. That's what we've all been trained to believe. And for many people, that belief is so closely held, is so near and dear to their heart. It brings up things that their grandmother told them when they were little, or things their mother told them when they were little. It's hard for people to get past that kind of training from that early age. Sometimes you'll repulse them initially when you say that, but you got to give them some grace, give them some time, realize that you've just told them Santa Claus is not real. It's going to take them a few days, a few weeks, a few months to process that, and then come back to you and say, are you kidding me? Is that really what you're doing here? That's when the conversation begins.
Now, for many people, the carnivore diet is sort of a last hope. They have all these health issues, and if they don't go on carnivore, chances are some very unpleasant things are going to happen to them. But there are a number of people, in particular my age, who are young, healthy. They don't have this immediate need to go on carnivore. What would your advice be to those people in terms of motivating them to start the proper human diet?
Yeah. If you look closely enough, anybody of any age who's looking at diet as a possible answer, they've got some pain points. It may be acne, it may be early male pattern baldness, it may be impotence, it may be inability to conceive, infertility, it may be their weight issues. They've got pain points, or they wouldn't even be thinking about diet. Think back to when you were in your early teenage years. If you were healthy, you're running around eating the Cheetos and Doritos, drinking the Pepsi. You're like, I don't even think about diet. Now, no, that if somebody said you need to change your diet, you'd be like, why? I feel freaking amazing, right? But they usually have a pain point, and you've got to figure out what that pain point is. In many cases, they can't get rid of that 50 pounds. In many cases, their periods are mucked up. They can't understand why, even though they're on a birth control pill. They've seen the doctor, they've got the labs, they don't understand why this is happening to them. In many cases, it's mental health. I'm depressed all the time. I'm anxious all the time. I'm having panic attacks, or worse. You got to find that pain point and then point out an example. Hey, I know a guy or a girl who was just like you. They were having the same exact symptoms as you. And when they did this crazy all meat diet, those symptoms got significantly better. Then they're ready to listen.
Hmm. So on the carnivore diet, we see, like you just mentioned, a number of people's mental health transform. I know young people, they're 20 years old, they've got everything in their life is going their way, yet they're chronically depressed.
Yep.
What is the correlation, do you think, between diet and mental health? And why is it that eating these hyper processed foods tends to make people depressed for seemingly no reason?
Yeah, I think there's at least two things going on here. One is when you're eating an ultra processed diet, unless you're taking a handful of supplements every single day, you're going to have vitamin and mineral deficiencies. You're also going to have fatty acid deficiencies, amino acid deficiencies. So if that's part of it, so when you add meat and eggs to your diet, all of a sudden you're getting all that nutrition. It's going to improve your mental health. People think that somehow the brain is disconnected from the body, that mental health, if you have a physical malady, then let's talk about diet and let's talk about, this, that, or the other. But if you've got a mental issue going on, oh, we need to talk about psychotherapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. We need to talk about these weird esoteric woo-woo things. Guess what? Your brain is made of meat. Your brain is meat. If a lion killed you, if they could get into your brain case, they would eat your brain too, because it's great nutrition. How come the brain is great nutrition? Because the body prioritizes putting these things into your brain, and therefore your mental health is literally built of what you've eaten over the last 3 months to 3 years. And people don't think that way about mental health. They think it's magical somehow. It's disconnected from the human body. And I think there's a lot of religious reasons that is. But when it comes right down to it, your brain is built of what you've eaten, just like your left bicep is built of what you've eaten. If you're not happy with your left bicep, then you need to lift heavy weights and eat a proper human diet. If you're not happy with your mental health, then definitely see a mental health care provider. But also, you got to fix your diet, because that's what you're building your future neurons from.
Completely. Yeah, I think it's insane how they give people who are depressed, serotonin upregulated drugs when, 90% of serotonin is made in the gut and they're eating these ultra processed poisons with 27 different ingredients, emulsifier 2798 400,000, you know what I mean? All these
Yep.
ridiculous things when all they need to tell
Yep.
them to do is change your diet. But
Absolutely.
there are many people under the disillusion that if they avoid certain foods, they have an eating disorder. I see dietitians online talking about this, that if you don't eat the ultra processed garbage, you have an eating disorder. Even I believe it's Dietitians AU has the definition of a fad diet on their website as a diet that people deliberately avoid certain foods. What are your thoughts when it comes to this? Is the carnivore diet a fad diet? Is my question.
The carnivore diet is actually the oldest diet known to humanity. There are multiple examples of societies successfully eating a carnivore diet their entire lives, multiple different societies all around the world. This is not just a geographical thing. This is not a religious thing. If you go back more than 12,000 years, you take all the religiosity out of the equation, because all the major religions were formed earlier, but after that, right? So if you take anybody of any religion, if you take anybody of any ethnicity, and you go back far enough in their family tree, their heritage is actually a carnivore diet. But they've forgotten that because we've been so confused by all the different inputs into our beliefs about what a diet should look like for a human being. The poor dietitians that say all things in moderation, eat the rainbow, if you exclude any food group, then you have an eating disorder. These poor people, I mean, they're obviously mentally pitiful on their face. I feel sorry for these people because they're singing a song that's never, ever going to be popular again. We're seeing this all around the world. Once people try a real whole food keto diet or a ketovore diet or a carnivore diet or a line diet, they're like, booyah. I did not know it was possible to feel this good and be this healthy. Now just imagine that person after they've had this epiphany, have a dietitian tell them, well, if you exclude any food group, that's an eating disorder. They sound like a fool, and they are a fool. Not intentionally, they just don't know better. So quickly, that kind of foolishness with regards to dietary advice, that's going to fall by the wayside, because that's literally like taking mechanical advice on how to fix your car from a 3-year-old child. That's how ignorant that kind of advice is. And I predict you'll hear less and less of that as time goes on, unless they're paid by a big food manufacturer, which in many cases that's actually what's going on in the background.
Indeed. If you're enjoying this interview and you want to see more carnivore related content like this, consider subscribing down below.